How do you start your day? Excited? Or perhaps there's a lingering feeling of tiredness from the day before. Normally, we should start the day with 100% battery, but I think we all know this isn't always the case. There's a thin line between being a high performer and being an overachiever. From the outside looking in, they often look pretty identical, but the way that they spend themselves tends to be very different. Let's talk about that today. Both high performers and overachievers tend to be very ambitious. They want progress, they want to get things done. But the difference usually isn't work ethic. Instead, I like to think it's resource management. Energy being the main resource here, and sure, time, experience, skill, all of these things matter, but energy is always going to be the main bottleneck. Because when energy collapses, everything else follows suit. Focus, patience, judgment. And overachieving usually isn't about doing too much work, but it's about ignoring feedback from your own system, your own body while doing it. And I'm speaking a little bit from experience because I like to think of myself as an overachiever. And to use myself as an example here, then there are a few patterns that tend to show up with me, and I'm sure show up with other people, that can lean into overachievement. Things like saying yes too quickly, even when you feel some resistance, going over your own limits or your own borders because the goal feels important enough, treating rest like something that you have to earn. And after that, the basics start slipping. You sleep a little bit less, you move a little bit less, you eat whatever's easy, more out of convenience rather than for fuel. And this doesn't have to be extreme, but just enough to shrink your margin. Think of it, for example, like what sleep can do. If you haven't slept enough the night before, how that can impact the day that comes. Your focus gets inconsistent, you procrastinate, and then when you do so, you have to push harder to make up for it. You're always busy, but just not in a very effective way. If none of this fits, I mean, that's fine. Great even. But if some of it does, let me be the one to tell you that it's most likely not a motivation problem, but a capacity problem. It's not a work ethic issue, but it's resource management. High performers aren't less ambitious than you, but they tend to protect their ability to keep going a little bit better. They don't say yes to everything. They don't carry every task themselves. Hell, they delegate even if possible. Because they know what happens when they burn out. Nothing moves. They're mindful of what, but also who, is worth their valuable energy. If you don't invest in yourself by eating and sleeping well, you're going to keep bouncing against the same walls. A flat tire isn't going to get you anywhere unless you push yourself very hard. It also helps to notice where your satisfaction comes from. If your satisfaction only comes from results, the process becomes something that you endure, and every setback in that process is going to feel heavier than it needs to be. But if the process itself holds some sort of interest, not even passion, but just interest, something that you're engaged with, effort will already cost a lot less. And you're still working, but you're not fighting yourself the entire time to get through that process, to get to the result, the satisfaction that you want. The goals still matter. They give direction, but when goals are the only thing that keep you going, they start draining more than they return. I think there's a difference between a challenge that pushes you to your limits and one that already pressures you and almost feels overwhelming before you've even started yet. And a lot of overachievement is driven by a fear of stopping, a fear of falling behind, a fear of not being enough, fear that if you slow down, something important will disappear. But stopping doesn't usually erase progress, but it highlights what was already unsustainable. Taking a breath doesn't kill momentum, it is sort of a test whether the momentum was real or just something that you kind of force yourself into. High performance doesn't rely on everything going right, but it relies on your ability to adjust without breaking yourself. Making meaningful decisions for yourself is never failing. It's keeping the process going. It is high performance without failing yourself. Trust, love, and care for yourself enough to deal with the uncertainty, with chaos and messy situations. Own your bad days and move with the chaos, and afterwards allow yourself some rest. And don't rely on everything going right, but rely on your ability to adapt. Move that mountain with intention. So, take a full, deep breath. Let go of the tension in your body. Release the weight of the day. Not everything has to be solved today. Not everything has to be solved right now. Thanks for watching.